Cheers. We have to do a quick change of scenery. A slump, like, what else is there to read? Because I was liking Demon's Dream, you know, with the action and whatnot. And they were like, you gotta read Product of the Streets. I am a Kindle girly down. This goes with me everywhere. Hello. Hi. Y'all, I have been sitting on this YouTube for the last like 2-3 years. My last upload, I think, was like, it might have been a year ago. I'm gonna have to double check. And funny enough, the last video talked about, you know, posting without the hustle, posting, you know, without feeling self-conscious. And honestly, that's what I'm gonna do. And the inspiration behind this video today is BookTok. If you know, you know. I have just been not inebriated. I have just been enamored with BookTok, and what I've discovered is so crazy. Like, it's ridiculous. And I'm going to try to look at the camera. I'm recording next to my laptop. I need to look at the camera. It's going to be so hard to do that. But today's inspiration is BookTok. I think have read over 100 books so far since I got my Kindle, and a good half of those books came from BookTok, and a good portion of those came from Black BookTok. If you know, you know. It is just a widespread community, and it honestly, it doesn't even stop at TikTok. It's on Threads, it's on Twitter, it's on Substack. I'm in several Discords about it. And I'm just like, you know what? I read so many books, especially after getting this thing right here. I need to vent. I need to talk about just how I've just rediscovered my love of reading, and just like what I want to do moving forward with reading. I'm not even trying to be like, you know, write, become an author. I just want to read every single book that comes out, whether that's on my Kindle or whether it's physical. Like, that's what I want to do, and I think I'm gonna do it. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Well, before we do that, before we get into the meat and the potatoes of the video, a good portion of it is going to be me talking about what I've read so far, the genres that I read, the difference between the Kindle and the paperback, which one I prefer, and then honestly my reaction to the book. Let's get into the books. So, back in 2020, in 2020, I caught COVID July 2020, like right at the height of it. And I was sitting in my room. I had scrolled every single YouTube video. I had saw every single TikTok video. I was doing all the dancing, the trending. I was reading old magazines, and I was trying to read the books that I had already, but they were books from like high school, and I was like, ugh, these are boring. And so doing my aimless scrolling on the phone, I find that I'm still paying for the Kindle app like I was back in college. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, let's go. So I start scrolling, say like authors you may love. They're like suggested in the notifications. It said author you may love, or it was author you might like is dropping soon. And that author was J.L. Seekers. And she was a romance author and smut peddler. Shout out to her. So I was like, okay, let me read it just to see. I'm not doing anything else anyway. I've been scrolling. I've been TikToking. You know, let me just read, you know, refresh the brain a little bit. Because when I tell you, my brain was absolute mush. Cheers. We had to do a quick change of scenery. So, like I said, I came across J.L. Seekers back in 2020. I had been scrolling through every single book. I've been scrolling through every single thing on TikTok, on YouTube, and I came across J.L. Seekers. And the first book I read of hers was called Again, with Amina and Jax. They were a divorced couple who found found their way back to each other after a weekend when their loved ones were getting married. I was like swooning over that book. And then from there, I found her other work. I found her other workings of the New Haven series. And that led me to Restore Me with Sloan and Dominic, which Dominic Alexander, top tier book boyfriend. Minus the grumpiness, top tier. Top tier book boyfriend. So Restore Me, and then probably it led me to one of my next favorite book series, Revive Me. JL really put her foot in that series. If you know, it is the story of Mallory and Dr. Christopher Johnson. That was where like my love for series just like took heed. Like, oh, that series was written so well. And I had actually started reading it. I started reading it, and then she hadn't even dropped the third book yet. And I was waiting, and then she finally dropped it. And I actually got the physical copy of the third book, and I'll show y'all that a little later in the book. And from there, I just really started reading again. I found small, I'm trying not to get this ring like in the thing. So if you see me moving, that's why. I had got this, I started finding like smaller authors. I came across, Natasha Bishop. I came across Liz Tomford. I also came across, who else? Let me see. I have like my list going of who I came across. Carla Thompson. She wrote A Figure of Speech. That one was probably one of my favorites. It was a journalist and a politician. It was a marriage of convenience. Oh my God, that was so good. And I believe she's writing a second book on it, or like a sequel to that book. I don't know for sure yet, but I'm definitely going to double check. But that's just how my love started. I started getting into series again, and that's when I found out I was a series book girl. Like, give me all of the series. Bonus points if it's more than 3 books, because oh my God, I'll devour a series in a day if you let me. Ooh, what is this on me? But I found my love for reading again, and then BookTok only spurred that whole thing. So in the midst of reading and trying to find new books on, Kindle, I would scroll on BookTok to find more things to read. And that's how I found Figure of Speech. That's how I found Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop. Oh, Rome Martin, cheers. Or like my favorite TikToker, Scott Louis, to us. But I really enjoyed just finding small books here and there. And then that's how I stumbled across Gray Huffington. Now, I devoured Gray Huffington. Devoured. And like I said, I found all these books on TikTok. Like, that's probably like, TikTok, it's useful for some things. It's definitely useful for finding your next Kindle read. And like I said, I am a Kindle girly down. This goes with me everywhere. To the gym, at work, to the store. If I find myself waiting in my car for anything, she goes with me. She's everywhere. Kindleretta, that's what I call her. Kindleretta, she's with me everywhere. Everywhere. Like, at this point, it's lip combo, my license, wallet, Kindle. I have a bad day when I know this isn't in my bag. I truly do. I mean, I have the Kindle, and then I have like my iPad, and then I have like the Kindle app with everything. Like, it's the best thing ever. So yeah, anyway, I got to Gray Huffington, and I found Gray Huffington when people started talking about, I saw this TikToker, and she was talking about most unhinged MMCs, and not unhinged MMCs, best book boyfriends. And she said Luca Eisenberg, and I was like, oh, who's this? And so I go and I read it. Oh my God. Gray Huffington. Chef's kiss, sis. Chef's kiss. And So I think that spurred my love of a series, really, a little bit more so than J.L. Seeger's Revive Me. Because Restore Me was so good. So the first series that I ever read by Gray Huffington was The Eisenberg Effect. And the Eisenberg Effect is the four siblings, or the three siblings plus the dad's story. So it's Luca, who's the older brother, Lake, the second oldest brother, and then the little sister, Lyric. And then there was a little novella that she dropped for Liam. And honestly, Liam is the siblings' dad. And his book kind of opens the door to the next series. So she has a whole series, a whole world for it. So it's the Eisenberg Effect, then it's the domino effect, and then that leads into the Berkeley Bread series. So I got all the way up to Law, which is the last book of the domino effect. Now it's Law and Ledge. Ledge and Law are the twin brothers of the Eisenbergs. And if you want to know how that spurs, you have to read Liam. And that's my one thing too. I'll get off track real quick. That's my one thing too. You cannot skip books in series. You're going to be confused. Because if you skip over Liam, even though it's really short, you're not going to understand where Ledge and Law come from. And even you won't understand where Malachi starts. Now, disclaimer, I have not started Malachi. I stopped at Malachi because I dove into urban romance. So let's segue into urban romance. So like I said, I started reading Malachi and all of them, or not Malachi. I started reading Gray Huffington, and then I read this other book. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a play on Love at First Sight. How it was pretty much Love at First Sight written on Kindle. It was really good. I forgot the name of that. I think her name was Natasha Williams. Please don't quote me on that. I will find it again and I'll link it down below. But right after that, I dove into urban romance, and that's how I found The Danger Brothers, or The Danger series by India Carter. Whew. Now that was a little too advanced for me, if you know what I'm saying, as far as the book content. But again, it's another series. So it revolves around Diamond, Diesel, and Declan. Now, I am a Diesel girl through and through. Although Declan does come it's because Diesel and Declan are twins. They're kind of neck and neck, but Diesel's still just right above Declan for me. Declan's story was a little bit more gut-wrenching and more like heartfelt than Diesel's was. Diesel was just the older brother. He was grumpy, but then he ended up being wrapped around Grayson's finger. Oh, that book is so good. But honestly, the jump from romance to urban romance, it is a pretty big jump. Or I won't even say from romance to urban fiction / urban romance. I'm still looking at the differences of them. A lot of it is just urban fiction, and then a lot of it, only a good small portion of it is urban romance. And I'll be honest, at this point now, I'm 28 years old. In the last 3 to 4 years, I've only read Black authors. And I used to read, a good mix when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I'm a woman, I want to read stories that really interest me, and 9 times out of 10, a Black woman author is going to do it for me. Sorry, not sorry. And just that jump from it, I like looking at the differences. Because, like, Gray Huffington, she is romance. I would say contemporary romance. It's sweet, it's nice, and it is kind of spicy, you know? Then you have urban romance, you know, like India Carter, who, well, not even urban romance. Let me see, who else? Urban romance. Jacquel J. I'm going to get to her in a second. I'm going to get to Miss Author Lady in a second. She is urban romance, where it's a little bit more rougher. There's the content, you know, is a little bit more, you know, on edge, you know, guns, drugs. I love me a good gun, drugs, you know, cartel. That's me. That's me all the way. I love it. So just that jump, I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know if I want to, you know, read something like this. I just want, you know, sweet, slow burns. All you gotta do is give it a chance. That's all you gotta do, is really give it a chance, you know, to diversify your readings. Now, I did used to be a thriller girly. I used to be a suspense girly. Nonfiction really didn't do it for me, because in school you're forced to read nonfiction. And now that I'm older, I can choose what I can read. Fiction just, you know, it holds me more than nonfiction. Now, that's not to say that I don't read it. I do read it when I, you know, need, you know, to keep this brain of mine going. But I would just prefer to read fiction because it's slightly better, in my opinion. So, anyway, let's get back to this. I told y'all, I'll get off track real fast. So, from there, after I started reading the Danger series, I was in a bit of a book slump. And I didn't know that's what it was called when you couldn't find anything to read after. I was just like, nothing is holding my interest after I finished the Danger series. And so I had been searching and looking. I got on BookTok. I got on Black Book Threads. I joined this Black Book Discord. And I was like, hey, you guys, you know, I just got done reading the Danger series. What else should I read, you know, because I'm liking this, you know, I'm liking this type of vibe with the story, you know, business, a little bit of, you know, hearing business, you know, family. I like it. And so then when somebody responded back and they were like, you need to read Demon's Dream. Now, I had been seeing Demon's Dream all over my For You page, and I was judging a book by its cover hard. I was like, I am not about to read this hood book. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay, sorry, y'all. I keep having to, like, stop. It's so crazy. Stuff keeps needing my attention. So I will say, before I got to Demon's Dream and before I got to the Danger series, I read Robbie Renee's Somebody's Wife. It is a part of the Grown and Sexy Somebody series. That book was so good. Gemma meets Dr. Ezekiel Green, and that is a just fiery, fine-ass couple. Gemma, her husband, cheats on her. You know, they are both, you know, they're trying to keep up appearances because they are both employees at the university that they're at, and Dr. Ezekiel Green, was just hired at the university. It was so good. That was just like, Gemma was one of my favorite female main characters, because she didn't take no ish from her husband. Like, at all. Once she realized that the marriage wasn't there, she was like, oh, we're not going to do therapy. We're not going to do this. You going to sign these divorce papers. And of course he, you know, tries to, you know, stop it and like, oh, we need to do. No, she was like, absolutely not. And then she goes and lives happily ever after with that fine Dr. Ezekiel Green. And so that's what I read before I got to the Danger series. And then after I read the Danger series, that's when I stumbled upon Demon's Dream. Now, I judged Demon's Dream very hard. Very hard. It was not a book that I thought I was going to like. It kept popping up on my For You page. I was like, I don't read these type of books. I'm not going to do it. Demon Montana? So good. Cartier Smoke Salinas? Which, I mean, me and like half of BookTok probably want Smoke's book by himself. Smoke was slightly more interesting than Demon. However, Demon and Dream Story, it was predictable, but I absolutely loved it. That was 700 plus pages of just pure action. And I absolutely loved it. It just kept going. And honestly, Dream and Demon, I mean, like I said, their story was a little bit predictable. I wanted more of Diana and Smoke. That was so crazy. Smoke was like, you know how sometimes like the side characters are a little bit more interesting than the main characters? That's how I felt about Smoke. Smoke was a little bit more interesting than Demon. And Smoke and Diana was more interesting than Dream and Demon. So pretty much the premise of that is Dream's brother does something irreparable between two families, and it's up to Dream to, you know, settle the debt with the families, and she has to pretty much be, I don't like using the word sold, but she has to be given to Demon in order to settle the score. Now, that book does kind of have like a pretty big twist that I was not expecting, but that's what makes good books. That's what makes good books. So it took me, like I said, I pulled an all-nighter to finish that. An all-nighter to finish that, and I do not regret it. I keep thinking I'll keep going to go back and keep rereading it, but there's just so many books, like I said, that I want to read, that I just want to get into. But I don't even know why I'm rushing, because like I can read whenever, however I want. So there's that. So after I read Demon's Dream, I got back on BookTok, because BookTok's a little bit more active than the book threads. I was like, all right, y'all, I'm in a bit of a slump. Like, what else is there to read? Because I was liking Demon's Dream, you know, with the action and whatnot. And they were like, you gotta read Product of the Streets. If you know about Product of the Streets, you know about Product of the Streets. So Product of the Streets follows Link, Oz, Francisco, and Henny. They are called the Four Horsemen, and they rule Union City. They rule it. And if you know that book, disclaimer, well, not even disclaimer, because E. Bowser tells you, and you read the synopsis, that book has very, very, very heavy sexual content. You know, there's smut and then there's spice. I don't even think you can consider that spice. That is just flat out.
Okay, I found this on the web for spice that is just flat out.
Nope, see? Siri talking about spice. Girl, get on. And funny enough, she has trigger warnings in the beginning. Trigger warnings and definitions of what you will see in the book. Hold on, let me show y'all. So there are 6 books in total of Product of the Streets, with the 6th book being a physical copy exclusive only. So I'm just going to show y'all the trigger warnings. So she shows you the warnings, triggers, and definitions. Right there. Triggers and definitions. And in the triggers, you know, exhibitionist, voyeurism, erotic asphyxiation, collaring, mask fetishism, stalking, antisocial personality disorder, psychopath, sociopath, and she gives definitions of some foreign languages, because two of the characters in the book, Dr. Santino Wellington and Francisco Wellington, I believe are Portuguese or Hispanic. They are one of them, but they speak 2 different languages. So that's what it is. So that's the 6th book. That is Dr. Santino Wellington. He is the brother of Francisco Wellington. That book, I had to put it down a little bit. Not gonna lie, I had to put it down. And I actually got some book mail from E. Bowser, because the book came with a box exclusive. And I never got a book box exclusive before. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, like I said, 2 of them are doctors. We're good. It didn't break. It almost hit my desk. A prescription shot glass, which I think is pretty cool. The book does have heavy BDSM content, so I get a keychain of some handcuffs and then an anchor. And if you read the book, you'll know what that anchor is for. And then she gives you bookmark and a really cool highlighter that is also a syringe, because they like to stick people and poison people with stuff in this book. If you know, you know. So that's what came with that book. And so I finished that. And honestly, that book series, if you aren't into sexual heavy content in your books, I would steer away from that one. Me, it's not that I had to have it. I didn't mind it. I just, just for some people, they don't like that extra heavy content. So, fair warning, if before you start it, it is very heavy and it's very detailed. I'm talking like, I think one scene will last I could be being dramatic, but one spicy scene could last about 4 to 5 pages. Sometimes you kind of have to skip over a little bit because it's a lot and it's very detailed. And this is like her first urban romance deal, because she is like a paranormal romance author. So that series, I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because it was well written. The characters, Francisco Wellington. We love a lovesick pyromaniac, unhinged MMC. Fax was ready to blow up any and everything for no reason. No reason at all. Fax, come on. You can't blow this person up because he breathed next to Crescent. Come on now. Where's the logic in that, boo? Where's the logic in that? So that's how I really got started into it. And I finished Product of the Streets right around January of this year, 2025, because I did stop a little bit. And then I read a few more other books. So after that, like I said, I did read The Last Minute First Lady by Tina Mumford. And then I also stumbled upon Kennedy Ryan's Before I Let Go. That was the first book in the Skyland series. I would rate that book like an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. Yasmin's character I tried to give her some grace because, she suffered something very traumatic. And as somebody who's never been pregnant, who's never experienced the loss of a child, I can't, in good faith be like, oh, she did too much, following what happened. So, but I did enjoy the book. And I didn't know that it was a part of the Skyland series. Now, I didn't read Soledad's book, the second book. I didn't care to. I didn't care to read it. But I was very interested in Hendrick's book. And I just finished that one. I think 3-4 days ago, I just finished it. I really enjoyed it. And I love that it did not end in her changing her mind with pregnancy. She was a character. She knew, she was nearing her 40s. She had her career. She knew what she wanted to do. And then I kind of also appreciate how the main male character, Maverick, didn't, was also understandable in not having kids because he already had one. He didn't try to force it on. He was like, look, I have my child. If you want another one, we'll see. We'll see how that works. But I really did enjoy it. I'm kind of glad they got married. I'm kind of hoping that we get an end because I kind of want to see how that develops. She said she was very gender fluid in her expression with, her relationships, and, she didn't care. So I would love to see how that, goes so far. All right, y'all. So this next part, I'm going to show y'all why I have been personally victimized by one Jaquel J. We call her Ja. We call her J. We call her Miss Author Lady. I call her a terror of the Kindle. Because she terrorizes me every time her name comes across my Kindle. You wanna know why? Because she's had me in a chokehold since March 18th, 2025. It is currently July 29th, 2025. Let me tell you why. Picture this. I'm scrolling on BookTok again. And through the many various, scrolling on TikTok, people were talking about Capone, Capadonna. I kept seeing Capri. People were laughing about Menace and his funny questions. People were talking about, Wiley is crazy. I'm like, who are these characters? Who are these characters? And then what really spurred it is the girlies were going crazy after she dropped Quasem 2 and ended it the way she did. So I was like, let me give this a shot. Let me give this a try because, the girls are going crazy. Like, she said the girls were fiending, itching for the ending of Quasem, for the new Quasem 3. And I was like, okay. So I did my daily peruse. I found how to start the Delgado Inferno series. And let me just say this. King Inferno is mine. Sorry, not sorry. Michael might come for me, but Quasem Israel Inferno is mine. However, we'll get to that. So, like I said, picture it. March 18th, 2025. I'm at La La Land. And I'm like, you know what? Let's go ahead and start this Delgado Inferno series because everybody's talking about it. Let me just go ahead and do it. I'm sitting there with my matcha, my almond croissant. I'm like, oh, okay. She ends it on a crazy cliffhanger. I finish that book in a day. I start Capone 2 that night. She ends it again on a crazy cliffhanger. I start Capone 3. Okay. So what's after Capone? You have his twin brother, Capadonna, who's been sitting upstate. Capadonna is one of the funniest characters in this whole series. He had me dying. Him and Capone are twins, so they're the same age, but Capadonna spiritually is 70 years old with the way he acts. Now, his book is 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. His book spans 5. Capone spans 3. I read Capadonna's. Capadonna's is, okay. Capadonna's is cool. And if you know, you know. Then we get to Big Pre. And like I mentioned before, you absolutely cannot skip any books in this series. They are all connected. You can't start at Capone, skip over Capadonna, and go to Quasem. Or you can't only read Capri's and then skip over to 10,000 Hours with the Rich Menace. You need to read. Capri is where the meat and the potatoes happen of this entire series. It's where everything goes down. And it's a trickle-down effect from what happens in Quasem and pretty much what happens in Menace, too. In 1,000 Hours with the Rich Menace. Anyway, so Capri. Those are the Delgado siblings. You have Capri Inferno, or you have Capri Delgado, ne Inferno, or Capri Inferno, ne Delgado. Then you have Capone Delgado. Then you have Capadonna Delgado. Their stories were so good. Erin, Capone's wife, his name is Erin, and I love it. Her name is Erin. My name is Erin. Her little brother in the book's name is Jaden. My little brother's name is Jaden. So I hold Capone very special in my heart just because of that. And Capone really started the full series. Once you guys realize, so they are two twins who are in the streets. They have several businesses, and they cook up that work, if you know what I'm saying. So that's how they make their business. They come from immigrant parents who also, their daddy used to run the streets a little bit, and their mama ran the streets a little bit. And you'll learn more about that, like I said, in Capri's. Capri is where everything goes down. Capri is their sibling. She is an attorney who, she kind of got me. She would lose me a little bit with some of her choices, but she is one of the best female main characters I've ever read. Her growth and her path is so good. It's really good. So I read I read Capone, I read Capadonna, and I read Caprice. So then the girlies were like, hold on, sis. Do not get to Qasim yet because she hasn't dropped it. Did I listen? Absolutely not. I did not listen. So I automatically started. So after I finished Capri, the girlies were like, hold on. Do not start Qasim yet because she hasn't dropped Qasim 3. Now, who is Qasim? Qasim is Capri's brother-in-law. Capri's husband is Cormier Inferno. He is Prince Inferno of the biker gang, the Inferno Gods. Now, Inferno and Qasim Inferno, they are not head of the Inferno Gods. Qasim is head of the Inferno Gods. He is King Inferno. And then Cormier is Prince Inferno. He is pretty much second in command after their father stepped down due to their mother's diagnosis. And like I said, they start mentioning Qasim, I believe, in Capadonna. I know they mention him in Capri a lot because Capri's husband's brother. But they start mentioning him in Capadonna. So like I said, we really don't want to skip any books in this series. And they pretty much rule the streets of New York through this biker gang. And Qasim, he was deemed King Inferno after his father stepped down. Now Qasim, he unfortunately lost his 5-year-old daughter to a very aggressive cancer, and the mother of his child, his girlfriend, was murdered. So he was carrying a lot of grief, a lot of heartache, and he was just very closed off. He was the silent but deadly guy. His nickname was Diablo. I like it. And so from there, they were, at one of the Inferno, at the Delgado's homes, and that's where he meets Capri's friend Blair. Now, Blair also has had her own trauma from losing her own child to battling cancer to, being bounced around from foster care to foster care. She's had her story. And like I said, I won't do like a full spoiler on it, but because you got to go read it. You have to go read it. You have to. But Qasim's book was probably one of the most gut-wrenching ones that I've ever read. And Jacques J doesn't make it any better because she makes you listen to songs during the chapter. I'll tell y'all, the one scene that got me, actually 3 scenes that got me. Qasim seeing Harley and Charisse again, Blair seeing Harley, and then 4 scenes when Qasim breaks down in the driveway, and then the one that I love was his proposal to her. The song Walk Through Fire, I listen to that every day now. I listen to it every day. Jaquel, girl. Jaquel, you take me through it. You take me through it with these books and these songs. But the good thing about it is my Apple Music library is stacked. It is stacked. So that's what it is. But I finished Qasim right at the beginning of July. But here it happened. So, like I said, I didn't listen. I started Qasim 1. Finished it. She ended it on a cliffhanger, and I was like fiending. I was foaming at the mouth because I had to know how she was going to end it. So, of course, I start Qasim 2, and I was like, I'm going to read it slow. Before I knew it, I was 50% in. I was like, okay, I'm going to pause. I paused it. So I was like, I got to, keep it up with something. So in the middle of reading stopping Qasim 2, I jumped back to J.L. Seeger's. She dropped a novella called Speak. It was a post-divorce romance. Beautifully written. Nice little palate cleanser. Because Jocko J, she be in them streets. Jocko J's books are full of guns, shooting, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So like I said, I did a palate cleanser with the J.L. Seeger's book. And so then I was like, okay, maybe if I, just let me read a few pages of Kwasim and she'll drop it. I got to 70% in and I was like, she hasn't dropped it yet. So I stopped it again. And in turn, stopping it again, that's how I went back and read Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan, Hendricks' book. So in the middle, from the time I stopped from when I stopped Kwasim the second time, for when I got to Can't Get Enough, I was about 30% in. Jacquel presses that button and Kwasim 3 is out. When I tell you, I literally dropped my iPad, ran and picked up my Kindle. But I went back and started Kwasim 2 over because it was quite some time from when I quit it, from when I stopped it the second time to when I got to about middle of mid beginning of Can't Get Enough. So I went back. I finished Q2 and I finished Kwasim 3 within 12 hours of each other. I finished Kwasim 2 and then Kwasim 3 wasn't even out for a full 24 hours before I finished it. It was not. And I told myself I was going to savor it. I absolutely did not. That author, like, she didn't give me time to. Jacquel J didn't give me time. Jacquel, you didn't give me time to finish it, sis. You didn't. And I'm sad. But Kwasim's book was just so good. It was tied up really well. Just Jacquel J's pen, I'm being dramatic, but like I feel it in my heart. Like my heart literally like constricts and beats and just, she takes you through a ride, and I'm so happy to be a reader of hers. Humor me. If I lost my memory, I wouldn't fret, because if I got to reread the Delgado Inferno series over again, I am so jealous of the girlies who get to, like, who are just now starting the Delgado Inferno series. Like, I'm so jealous whenever I scroll on TikTok. People are like, oh, I'm only on Capone 1 or just started Capone. I envy you. Just know I envy you, and I want to be you every day, every time I see one of those videos. But Kwasim's books really just, it was beautifully written. It took me through it. That I cried, I think, every 2 pages of Kwasim 3. Every 2 pages. Every 2 pages. Every 2 pages. She really took me through it. So now that Kwasim is done, let's jump to the Caselli family series. Now, Menace Caselli, like I said, don't skip anything. Don't skip none of the Delgado Inferno series. You can't do it. You can't do it because you're going to be confused. So 10,000 Hours with the Rich Menace stars Menace Caselli. Menace Caselli is best friends with Corleone D. Brewster. You're asking, who's Corleone D. Brewster? Corleone is the long-lost brother of the Delgado siblings. If you want to know how that comes about, you have to read the series. Go read the series. Do it. Read the series. I don't want no ifs, ands, or buts. Go read it if you haven't already. That's his best friend. And his book stars 10,000 Hours with the Rich Menace. And what his book is about pretty much is he owns this thing called Case House. It is an upscale sex worker house where the sex workers are protected. And turns out one of his workers actually stole money from him, and he gave it to his girlfriend, who was best friends with Stevie. Stevie is the main female character. So Menace is tasked, because he's part of the founding families of New York. And I learned with that, one of her early workings called A Staten Island Love Story kind of brings that together. I haven't read that one yet. That is actually on my list to read, my series to read list. But anyway, Menace is tasked with finding an heir and finding a wife. And he sees Stevie because he kidnaps them because he thought she stole her money. She stole his money, which she really didn't. It was just being funneled into her account by the friend who was dating the guy who actually stole the money from Menace. He falls in love with her. It's a very quick burn. It's a marriage of convenience, forced proximity, all of that. So, and, you know, it ends in the same way it all does. You know, they end up married happily ever after. He's a big lover boy. He has full on ADHD and OCD to the extreme. He doesn't like his foods touching. Everything is extremely organized. He doesn't like spontaneous things. When you walk into his house, you have to be sanitized from head to toe. Like, all that. So, with that book, Jacko J, she gave us a warning that Stevie lived with her heads in the clouds. I don't even think it's that. Stevie was a complete airhead. Absolute airhead. She was probably one of the main characters that I've ever read. She made me want to chuck my Kindle across the room because of her naiveness. She's not even type B. She's like type Z. There's nothing organized. She's to go with the flow. And that drives me crazy. Menace, you know, they rank him with the book boyfriends. I couldn't do Menace. He was just, Menace was a little too much for me. I like him, but as far as a book boyfriend, no. Couldn't do it. Menace is too much. But I really enjoyed that book. So that starts off the Caselli family, and I finished that one. So then the Caselli family starts. Then you have Koya, who is Menace's sister. She is a judge. Her name is Koya Case, I believe. Judge Case. Then you have Zoya, who is an attorney, and her book drops soon because she is being courted by Gerald Goon Wraith. Now, Goon is mentioned throughout all of the Capadonna, throughout all the Delgado Inferno series. Absolutely in love with her.